So today we're going to talk about "Do the Right Thing" by Spike Lee, and we're going to talk about two characters, Sal and Pino. Sal's the father of Pino, and we're going to talk about how their relationship develops throughout the film. Well, not develops throughout the film because this movie isn't a there's not a lot of character development. The characters are kind of the way they are, but we're still gonna talk about how the themes and the ideas that are discussed in the book, how they relate to their characters. So there's an opening scene. There's a specific interaction in the film that I'm going to talk about that provides more color, and then we're going to talk about a scene called Sal and Pino Talk, and that's going to give us the most insight into their relationship. So in that opening scene, um, the type of relationship that we're looking at is typical father-son relationship. And in that opening scene, we get a summary of the scene and how it goes is basically that Sal and Pino are opening up the restaurant. And Sal is telling Pino to sweep. Pino then tells his brother to sweep instead. That happens twice after Sal gets kind of like flustered, and then Pino goes into this whole rant about how he doesn't want to be there and how Sal he doesn't want to be there. And then Sal comes in and says, "Well, if you have any other bright ideas about where you should be or what we should be doing, you can go and do them, but you don't. So that's why you're here. So let's get to work." And that's kind of a precursor to the Sal and Pino talk that we get into later in the discussion. But what this does, it sets up the rest of the film as far as the context of what their relationship is going to be like. So the base of the relationship is that there's tension there. There's tension from two things. There's tension because Nick, well, Pino, excuse me, doesn't want to be there. He doesn't like going to work there at the pizzeria. The other thing is that um, there's this kind of burden of responsibility that he has as a big brother, and he's always trying to shift that over to his little brother to teach him a lesson. And Sal doesn't necessarily care about that. And then when we talk about the stages of relationships, right, they're pretty much in this maintain phase, and we're gonna talk about that once again later in the film, but later in the discussion, they're in this maintain phase, but they're also in this kind of circumscribed phase because what we have Pino basically not talking about that burden of responsibility. He doesn't like openly disclose that with Sal. He doesn't do that. He kind of like shrugs Sal off. He kind of just shrugs Sal's orders off, and he says, "Look, I want you to sweep." He tells his brother to do it instead. He does it twice, so he's shrugging that off. He's shrugging that discussion off with him. So that's kind of what we see in that last stage when relationships kind of start to fall apart. So I'm going to go into this interaction that we have in the middle of the film. And there's a lot of interactions that they have throughout the film. If Sal's in the scene, his sons are in the scene too. So there's a lot of interaction that they have. But there's one interaction in particular that I think provides a lot of color for me and is in the context. So I think that scene is where Sal is essentially arguing with one of the customers. One of the customers bugging out is in he doesn't like the fact that there's no African Americans on the wall. So there's no African Americans on the wall. Bugging out is no pun intended. Bugging out, and what we get is this really tense scene with Sal walking over with a bat, and we have Pino walk up behind him and grab the bat. Well, Sal looks around and kind of he's like in Sal, and Pino grabs the bat. And I think what that does is that once again we talked about in the opening scene how it kind of gave us context about how the relationship is, right? And there's tension, but there's tension, but there's also respect for Pino. Um, so that's what we get. We kind of get a glimpse into that in that scene, right? And I think that scene would have worked out differently if we had uh, that scene works out differently if we have Sal, not Pino, but Pino's brother. Excuse me. That scene works out differently if we have Pino's brother come into the mix. Um, yeah. Sal probably shrugs that off, right? Because he's the little brother. He's like, Sal probably shrugs that off and keeps the bat in his hand. And that scene turns out differently. So that interaction gave us more context for their relationship, and they flesh it out. And then the final thing in this film, and we can talk about some of the more in themes in depth here, is that the Sal and Pino talk. And so in this scene, what we have is we have Sal we have Sal basically saying, sitting down with Pino, and we talk about stages of relationships, maintaining a relationship, putting in an effort to maintain a relationship. This is Sal doing that. This is Sal saying, "Son, let's sit down, let's talk. What is going on? You have." He literally says in the movie, he says, "You have a lot of anger in your heart, and I want to know what's going on." So they're trying to maintain the relationship, and then we get into the idea of social disclosure, self-disclosure, right? The self-disclosure theory, and how much of yourself do you disclose, and what are the risks that you take when you disclose that information. And Pino discloses a lot in this scene. He basically tells Sal, like, I really don't like it here. And what we got in the beginning in that opening scene was a condensed version of this conversation. And he basically says, "Look, I don't like it here. My friends make fun of me when I come to work here. I hate being here." And we get a kind of insight into the way that they deal with their conflict. And we see this throughout the film, but once again, we have Sal basically coming and saying, as a boss of the pizzeria and head of his family, he's saying, and we talk about the idea of conflict management, it's a win-lose situation for Pino, which is, again, a source of tension for him. Like, that's why he has this kind of hate, anger in his heart. Because he wants to leave, he doesn't want to be there. His dad's like, "Look, man, I've been here for 25 years. Literally says in the scene, I've watched the kids grow old, and I've watched the old people get older. And I'm proud of that. And Sal doesn't want to go anywhere, and that's where their disconnect is, right? So we have this win-lose kind of situation. We have literally a win-lose situation with Pino. One person is kind of working out, and the other person is losing out. And there's a disconnect. And we're getting into a little bit of film analysis here, where we have the scene. The way the scene is blocked is that at the end, Pino leaves and they're split, but there's a window in between them. And Sal is sitting inside and he's kind of looking above. He's looking ahead, and he's looking outside and he's looking ahead. And during this time, Pino's kind of going at it with the people out with Mookie, not Mookie, but there's a character that he's mentally ill, and he's going at it with him, and he's going at it with the other people that are outside, and it's really symbolic of the disconnect. It's symbolic of the disconnect that they have, and how he's at odds with the community, and Sal's not at odds with the community. But at the same time, that's his son. So he still goes outside while this conflict is going on. You get that. You have the window pane separating them, symbolizing that disconnect. And then you have him going at it with the people outside, which is, symbolizing, how he's at odds with the community. And then you have Sal come outside still and say, "Hey, like, give him a break. Like, he's going through some tough things, and kind of reel him back in." And that's really, that kind of like, that balloons their whole relationship, that scene. So, in conclusion, we talked about the self-disclosure theory. Um, we talked about conflict management, how they manage their relationship toward the end of the film in that last scene. That win-lose, they have that win-lose. We talked about the disconnect between their characters, mostly because of that tension. And then we talked about, like, the stages of their relationship, right? So in that last scene, once again, Sal tried to maintain the relationship, and we get Sal tried to maintain the relationship, but we have these other pieces of the relationship that are there where Pino can't maintain the relationship because he has these kind of like hidden things going on with the burden of responsibility that he has with his brother. So Then we talked about the opening scene where we had, which is a precursor to the Sal and Pino talk. And in there, we also talked about the type of relationship that they have and the stages there. So that is my analysis of their relationship.